Fireside, the best grilling shop in town. At Fireside, I think I'm gonna go on down.
Hi everyone, this is Chris at Fireside Outdoor Kitchens, and I have a turkey in front of me, and we need to carve it. So I want to take the next few minutes in this video to show you my method for carving a traditional roast turkey, and give you a few pointers, a lot of things that you may have seen before that are common to just about any poultry carving, but maybe one or two that you haven't seen before. And I don't know about you, but you know that the holidays and Thanksgiving in particular always conjure these sort of Norman Rockwell-esque visions of, you know, the patriarch of the family standing there, carving fork in, carving knife, and we're sort of shaving slices off the breast like this. And I'll tell you, it looks great. You know, it kind of gives you that warm and fuzzy feeling, but I think you can do better for your guests and the people that are going to be eating that bird that you just took so much time to get just right. So I want to show you some tips that I think will help improve on that. I'm sure many of you know from other cuts of meat, tougher cuts of meat, brisket, flank steak, things like that, that one of the major rules of thumb in carving a piece of meat is cutting against the grain. It's particularly important with those tougher cuts of meat, or ones that have a very distinct grain structure. It's a little bit less important, admittedly, on a turkey, but you know, if it happens to all of us, if you overcooked it a little bit, if it got a little tough and a little dry, you need all the help you can get to kind of recover from that. So I want to show you a way to cut this breast that is going to help increase some of that tenderness by making sure that you're cutting against the grain. When you're carving off slices like this, that the grain structure of this breast goes in that direction. So you're carving just exactly with the grain. There's, for a while now, been a method out there for removing the breast from the carcass and carving it separately, and I think that that's a great idea, but there's a small problem with at least many of the methods that I've seen before, and I'll show you that in just a second. So what we're going to do is I'm going to in just a second here have my camera woman zoom in and get real tight on this so you can see just what I'm doing, but just to give you a little breakdown of what we've got here is I don't have my legs bound together. They're nice and open for us. I have previously removed the wishbone. There are a number of reasons to do that. If you're spatchcocking your bird, you want to remove that wishbone simply because it's going to allow that spatchcock to flatten out a little bit more shallowly and completely. When it comes to carving though, it's really nice not to have that wishbone there, because it will allow you to get your knife further down into the cavity and make a more complete cut, taking this breast off. And you'll see that in just a minute. But without further ado, why don't we zoom in and get started cutting. All right, so for those of you who have never broken down a turkey before, just a little bit of an anatomy lesson here. Obviously, these are our breasts right here. We have our wings, drumettes, and wing tips down here. We have our drumsticks and our thighs down here, okay? And that's pretty much what we're going to worry about for this lesson here. So first thing that I want to do is I want to open up this cavity right here. There's really nothing but air down there, so I'm just going to open it up and start by taking off, woo, how about some juices, huh? Start by taking off these thighs and drumsticks completely. Make that cut, and then what you want to do is you just kind of want to use your hands. I'm going to spread this apart until that joint pops and I can get a good eye on where it is. I'm just going to set this aside for a minute. So that's my thigh and my drumstick. Same thing over here on the other side. Open up that cavity. Pop the joint. Take it off and set it aside. Okay. Now at this point, what I like to do is I like to leave the wings attached. They give me a little bit of lateral stability here while I'm working with the breast. So we're going to leave those there for just a second. I'm going to start here by finding the keel bone, or which is essentially the sternum of the chicken, and I'm going to decide which side I'm going to start on. So here it is, right down this line. Take my knife, put it right on the other side of it. And here is where you can see the advantage of taking your wishbone out ahead of time. If I hadn't, I would need to stop right about there. I'd be hitting that wishbone, but now I can go all the way down, okay? I'm gonna bring it back towards the tail end of the bird, okay? So that's one cut. I'm gonna angle my knife slightly out, just a little bit, okay? Following that rib cage just a little bit. Now, I'm gonna come up under here, kind of using my wing as a shelf. Cut in and up just a little bit. And then here again, use your hands. This isn't all knife work. A little bit of hand action here is also important. And I'm just gonna cut it right off the carcass. All right, so there's one breast. Turn it around. Again, find the keel bone, go right on the other side of it. All the way down towards the end, all the way down where the wishbone was. Angle your knife out just a little bit. Follow the curvature of that rib cage, okay? And then starting at my wings, using them as a shelf, cut in and up. Using my hands, I'm going to come back, spread it open so I can see just where I want to cut to remove as much from the carcass as I can. I'm not going to lie, this thing is hot. And there's breast number 2. I'll set it right over there. Okay, so we've got the major groups done here. I guess I get a little handsy when it comes to this part of it. I kind of like using the weight of the bird with me when I take off these drumettes, and hold it up by the wing and just kind of, there you go. Same thing here. What I'm doing is I'm really just kind of carving a circle around that joint and letting gravity, the weight of the carcass, tell me where to continue. So here is more or less my empty carcass. Now some of you are going to say, well, that's not empty, there's a whole bunch of good meat on there, and you are right. This is called the chef's portion, okay? Oftentimes I'm usually the one tasked with the carving, and I get to sit here and kind of pick and nibble, getting a little appetizer. Another really important thing is you do not want to get rid of this. This is the start of all things wonderful when it comes to stock, making soups. Lots of good sauces come from a really heavy, good stock basis, and cooking this down with some aromatics is really going to give you a wonderful start to any sauce or soup that you may make. It's going to taste a little bit like the grill. It's going to taste a little bit like the seasoning that you put on it. It's going to taste a little bit like the turkey and all of the wonderfulness going on with its flavors. Please don't throw it out. Check out some videos about making stock and take advantage of this piece right here. It will pay you back for doing so. So we're not quite done here. Let's come back to our thighs. When you're breaking down a bird that is raw, it's really easy to separate the thigh from the drumstick, because right around here there's a little fat line that you can see. It comes up white against a sort of a red background here, and you just cut right there, you go right through. I've found that it's a little bit trickier when it's cooked, so I start with my drumstick vertically held, and I'll just open it up, cut down, and just look until well, there we go. It's in there somewhere. There we go. So there's our drumstick. And here's our thigh. What I'm going to do with the thigh, so we've got one bone running through it, runs from here to here. I'm just going to slice along it, open it up a little bit, go in there with my fingers, pop it out, and put that right over in the stock pile as well. Got a little bit of cartilage over here I'm going to fish out. All right, so now turn this back over, and I'm going to take this and just slice it. All right, and take that over onto our platter. Now, I don't know about you, but in my family I have some younger nephews, and they love just grabbing a big old turkey leg and gnawing on it. So I'm not going to take anything off of here. I'm just going to put it right onto my platter. That one again. As far as the drums and wingettes go, open up the skin in between. Honestly, a lot of times this is so well cooked that you don't need to do anything. You just pull it apart. These guys, same thing as the drumsticks, I'll just leave these whole. All right, so now we have our breasts. And what you've probably seen before is the method of taking it off the carcass, which we've done, and then slice, 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 right? Because that is going to be prescribed as against the grain. But let me see if I can show you something here. I don't know if you can see that as well as I can, but if I just made my slices like this, I'm going exactly with that grain. Remember, this sat on the bird like this. Now, if I was carving like this, I would be going exactly with that grain. I hope you can see that. It's really distinct in person. So I'm going to do something a little bit different. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my breast and I'm going to cut it in half. And then I'm going to turn it 90 degrees. Right? This was the direction of the grain. Now my knife is perpendicular to that grain. And this is how I'm going to slice my turkey breast here. Nice short grain structure on that. That's what you're looking for. You are, a little bit of a curvy, grain structured piece of meat. You are doing the best you can, in my opinion, to get against the grain. So that's pretty much what we've got for you today. Obviously, I've got another breast here and another thigh. Remember, what you want to do is, instead of just taking it off, which is a good first step, but you're not all the way there, don't just take it off and start carving slices like this, because remember, this grain structure goes like this. You'll be carving just exactly with the grain. What you want to do is cut that breast in half, turn both pieces 90 degrees, and then start carving from there, and you will be delightfully against the grain. Then same thing with the other thigh here, and we'll pan for a second to our platter here, and you will see a beautiful presentation. Doesn't have to be on the whole bird, but what your guests are really going to enjoy is a nicely carved bird, made it look like you knew what you were doing, and of course it's going to be a little bit more tender than the most because it is carved against the grain. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, stop down to Fireside on the World Wide Web at www.Fireside Outdoor Kitchens. Give us a call at 706-722-3939. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for further videos and follow us on social media. I'm Chris with Fireside Outdoor Kitchens. Thanks very much and have a happy holidays.
Fireside, the best grilling shop in town.